while these people are shouting out about this vaccine and they want to protect us with their vaccine, let's look at some of the things that are really killing us, for real. First of all, everything killing us emanates from our 66 trillion year old rebellion against Allah and our recent rejection of his plan for our salvation, given to us first from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and now Minister Farrakhan. Long before there was COVID, there was another pandemic, that's what I said, that is killing us at a much more alarming rate than any coronavirus could ever do. This is from an article through Reuters that is entitled "Diabetes, a Major Cause of Death from COVID-19." Now, when they put these numbers up every day on the news and say, oh, there's 4 million cases, 5 million cases, they never give us a breakdown of what these cases are, who's sick, how sick are they, are there any particular demographics that the virus is more lethal to than others. They just throw numbers up. Listen at this. And this is a government study by CDC, the U.S. Center for Disease Control. This is not Pookie's report. This is from the Center for Disease Control. A new government study shows that nearly 40% of people who have died from COVID-19 had diabetes. 40% of the COVID deaths are diabetic sufferers. And among those under 65, it's 50% of the deaths. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention analyzed more than 10,000 deaths in 15 states and New York City from February to May. Jonathan Wortham, a CDC epidemiologist who led the study, called the findings extremely striking, with serious implications for those with diabetes and their loved ones. A separate Reuters survey of states found a similarly high rate of diabetes among people dying from COVID-19 in 12 states and the District of Columbia. 10 states, including California, Arizona, and Michigan, did not report their diabetes cases, and the rest didn't respond. I wonder why. Because it's Black and Latino. Now look. They have rendered, by not responding, an incomplete picture for policymakers. So this means it's worse than what we have available. America's mortality rates from diabetes have been climbing since 2009 and exceed most other industrialized nations. Blacks and Latinos, of course, suffer from diabetes at a higher rate than whites. Now listen to this. Now, you know, all throughout this crisis, there's been the reference to people with preconditions, but it's been very generic. No one has really dug into what these, we see a list of them: obesity, high blood pressure, kidney issues, diabetes, and almost everyone they list is dominant in the Black community. But look at this. America's mortality rates from diabetes have been climbing, I read this, since 2009. Here's what the Albert Huang, professor of medicine and director of the University of Chicago Center for Chronic Disease, said, quote, diabetes was already a slow-moving pandemic. Now COVID-19 has crashed through like a fast-moving wave. Yes, beloved, diabetes is an official pandemic. You know how many people worldwide suffer from it? 382 million, ranging in age from 20 to 79. It kills 4 million people a year. So, as the minister has pointed out, this pestilence from heaven exposes everything. It says the COVID-19 pandemic has unearthed previously unknown complications because it has lasted longer and infected more people than earlier coronavirus epidemics. Doctors warn it may lead to a spike in diabetes-related complications, emergency room visits, amputations, vision loss, kidney disease, and dialysis. Andrew Bolton, president of the International Diabetes Federation and medical professor at the University of Manchester in England, said, my fear is that we will see a tsunami of problems once this is over. Now, the CDC calls Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, North and South Carolina, and West Virginia the diabetes belt. Alabama has the highest percentage of adults with diabetes, and they account for 38% of all COVID-related deaths through June. And because of this pandemic, in-person appointments that are needed to manage the disease have been canceled, and the high cost of insulin has forced people to keep working, risking virus exposure so they can pay for the medicine. In 2003, during the coronavirus outbreak called SARS, more than 20% of the deaths were diabetic. See, they saw this coming, the government, but it's you and me. See, genocide, criminal action can also be the result of inaction. You can withhold life-saving tools from someone, and depending on your level of consciousness and awareness and your ability to save a life, you can be held accountable for that. So, in what is going on in this crisis, in this broken healthcare system, many of these deaths are from related indirect causes that are not being acknowledged. SARS, during that outbreak, 20% of the deaths were diabetic. When H1N1 came along in 2009, diabetics were hospitalized 3 times more than others. And in 2012, 8 years ago, when MERS, another coronavirus, emerged, 60% of patients who went into ICU or died had diabetes. Why?
All right, family. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. Getting started. Got our brother. Thank you all for tuning in and joining us tonight, where we have with us 2 of our panelists, or you want to say, I don't know if we're on a panel now, doing that, we're doing this live. We have with us our Southwest Regional Minister, Brother Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. And we also have with us our brother, Dr. Akili Muhammad. And you saw the video that we started off with, and this is a video that's an excerpt from the lecture by our sister Ava Muhammad. And Sister Ava Muhammad, in part of her lecture, she talked about the impact of diabetes and as it is how it's being impacted, how it is impacting our people during this COVID. So tonight we have two of our panelists with us. We want to talk about this pandemic and these underlying causes, but we also want to give solutions, both spiritual, medical, political, social, and everything. So thank you, brothers, both of you all who are actually on. We appreciate you for taking the time out for to participate in this. Like we had somebody want to do a little reggae, you know. So here we go. So we're going to get right down to it, brothers. First, this webinar was actually being put on by the Southwest region. And I'm going to ask our student minister, Brother Abdul Halim, to talk about the Ministry of Health, but he has it another name that he gave, and he'll explain why. So, Brother Dr. Halim, can you share with us more about the purpose of this VWNI and the significance of this ministry during this time?
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. First of all, thank you, Brother Student Minister Willie Muhammad, for you utilizing this technology. I didn't mind a little reggae music. That was all right. I thank Allah for my brother Dr. Akili Muhammad, wonderful brother, and we're going to really get into it. The Honorable Minister Lord Farrakhan said to myself and to other student ministers, he said to us regarding the local organizing committees, the ones that started up in '94 to organize the historic Million Family March in 2000, Millions More Movement 2005, and of course the Justice or Else, which was 10-10-15. He said to us, don't let the LOCs die. These LOCs, the local organized committees, are not the mosque. They're how we interact with the people in the community who don't necessarily believe what we believe, but do believe in justice, do believe in freedom, do believe in equality. Part of the 9 ministries, really 10 ministries, but 10 ministries that were introduced at the Millions More movement, really before that, but let's say prominently on a world stage, were the ministries as we know them. They're found at NOI.org. But when we introduced these ministries, Brother Willie, especially the Black people, somehow, some way, if we're talking about a Ministry of Agriculture, instead of about somebody sitting down and say, okay, well, how are we going to grow some tomatoes, pick the tomatoes, market the tomatoes, feed the tomatoes to my people? Somebody want to get up and start preaching about tomatoes. So ministry, we really don't understand the concept of ministry as being a unit of government, a service to the people. So going back and forth over all the years, having fits and starts and failures and successes, but never letting the LOC die here. It's a sister named Sister Maddie, Sister Aisha, that's in the mosque, that over the past few years, really on her own, she has prepared and fed at least 150,000 meals, particularly in some of our food insecure areas. And so what we did was, under the LOC, the umbrella of the Justice Health Local Organized Committee, we organized what we call the Victory, the initials that you're using is the Victory Wellness and Nutrition Initiative, which is a combination actually of the Health and Human Services Ministry function and the Ministry of Agriculture function. And so this is how we're beginning to organize the assets in our community. Our problem isn't that we don't have, as Don Elijah Muhammad said, do we have the successful men and women for self-government? He answered the question himself. Yes, we do. And we do in the community, but too many times we take what is called a needs-based approach, Brother Willie. Needs-based approach, meaning we always going out what we don't have. We talk about what we don't have. instead of doing the job of trying to organize the professionals and the minds and the assets that we do have, the individuals, the associations, and the institutions that already exist, organize those so that we can leverage those assets to get what we need. So this is what we have attempted to do. We call it the Victory Wellness and Nutrition Initiative. And last year, before COVID-19 broke out, we served over 7,300 meals. This was done through the mosque and through the local organized committee with the help of churches and other people who come and participate in the local organized committee. And it also kind of spread to the rappers who we've organized under the Ministry of Arts and Culture function. It's called the Artists Respecting Community. And they've gone out and done promotions like 50 rappers, 50 meals. And they've gone out and prepared meals. And then they've gone out and they fed people in food challenged areas. So that basically is it in a bean shell, brother.
Yes, sir. And thank you for those remarks. And as I said to those who are viewing, we also have our brother, Dr. Akili. And Dr. Akili, in the article that Sister Ava was speaking on, she talked about how 40% of the deaths of the people who have died from COVID had the precondition of diabetes. And she said it also states in this article how Blacks and Latinos have the higher rates of diabetes than others here in America. So this is a two-part question. Can you briefly explain to those who may not really understand, one, what actually is diabetes? And the second part of the question, from your medical expertise, why do you think that Blacks and Latinos suffer from it at a disproportionate rate?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you, brother, for the opportunity to serve. I really appreciate it. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. For those of you hearing that for the first time, it just allows me to have God preface my statements and that they are true and honest, and removing my ego and arrogance. To say something brief about what is diabetes. Most of us on this call probably can remember when we were 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And typically in medicine, we say that people are finished growing between 19 and 21. That's when you reached your height. That's when you've reached your bone density. That's when your organs have all finished growing. And then if you can imagine 40 years later or 25 years later, you have added 100 pounds, you've added 150 pounds. That is a reality that I've seen in my practice on many of occasions. And we all can just come to a conclusion if we can just imagine that much weight being added to ourselves about how much more work that would be, how much that may be hard on our feet or our knees or our ankles. So I'll use another example. Just imagine that all of us were going to get a brand new car. And, you know, we don't go to a Toyota or a Honda dealership. We go to the Bentley dealership or the Mercedes-Benz dealership. And we get the most expensive, nicest car with all the amenities. And then you pull up in your neighborhood where you live and you got 12 people in your family and your friends that are standing there, and all of them want to get in your car all at the same time. Most of us would be totally against that, right? We'd be like, man, you're going to mess up my car if all of y'all get in here. It's too much weight. I can't put all y'all in this car. You're going to mess something up. And so when it comes to our physical things, we can understand these things, overworking a truck, overworking a car, or putting too much of this or that in whatever material thing that we have. But we don't consider the fact that there is a particular way that this human body is made. It's made to function based on the information that it was produced from, which is the genetic material that came from the sperm and the genetic material that came from the egg. And that's why we can look around and we can see, you know, you can be in public sometimes and maybe see a person that looks about as tall as Shaq. And you may see somebody that's a midget. You may see somebody that's 5 feet tall, and you have a chance to go see their family, and most of the people in their family are 5 feet or something in their range. You go see a dude that's 6'7", and you go and you see that his father was 6'5", and his mother was 6'3", or his uncle was 7 feet tall. And these things start to make sense that genetic material is to dictate to what it is that we have and how these bodies function. And so going back to that 19, 20, or 21-year-old person, if you were 140 pounds or if you were 180 pounds, now you're 40 and you weigh 75, 80, 150 pounds more than when you were 19 or 20, your body didn't change the size of your heart. Your body did not change the size of those bones. The pancreas did not change size, stomach, intestines, brain, all of these organs remain the same size, but you put all of this extra weight, all of this extra burden, all of this extra that the body has to take care of. But none of the functioning organs changed in their size, changed in their abilities. And so you're basically overworking your body. And specifically, when we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about overworking your pancreas. And the pancreas is broken up into 3 different divisions. There's only one section of the pancreas that produces insulin so that we can put sugar in the places that it needs to be put. So in essence, diabetes is a problem of overindulgence, ate too much for too long. And then it's a process of inability to keep up with all this extra work. Second question, you asked about why is it that this is destroying our communities? It is, I would say, primarily because we have come away from the type of diet and the type of dietary habits that we had as indigenous people. Once we were influenced by a European diet, a European ideology, we started eating outside of the things that were indigenous to us, that kept us healthy for trillions of years. And yes, I did say trillions, because indigenous people have been on this planet Earth for trillions of years. But yet we now put potatoes and cereals and a lot of yams and potatoes and rice and other foods, and especially the ones that have been bleached, the white foods, the white salt, the white sugar, the white pasta, the white flour. When you have these denatured, bleached foods that have no nutrients left in them, and then you're overindulging with that and you're overburdening your body by all this extra weight, your body is malfunctioning because it is malnutritious. It's malfunctioning because there's too much weight, and it's malfunctioning because the thought process of how to take care of it has been turned upside down. And so the Black and brown community is being destroyed because we haven't followed, number one, the guidance that we should be following. But then secondly, we're expecting that we can do whatever we want to do, take care of these bodies in any old kind of crazy fashion. But then I'm going to solve the problem with this pill that you give me. I'm going to solve this problem because you give me a shot. And I haven't even evaluated if I'm a spiritual person that this shot was made from a pig or any other animal. So, I mean, again, I'm just talking about that mentality of doing wrong year after year after year, not taking care of yourself, and then expecting some magical, theoretical, fantastic reality to solve your problems. Those are the things that we have to change, brothers and sisters. And I pray that at the end of this show, if nothing else, you just come to the conclusion that it's time to work. And I mean work like you work for everything else in your life. It's time to work for your health. If you are a diabetic, you are at a very high risk during this pandemic, this plague that we're dealing with right now. And let me just take the ethereal thing out of it, because some people think that that's just false. Well, in the Black and brown community, because of diabetes, heart attacks kill more Black people and brown people than this coronavirus ever will. I don't care what the numbers get to, you'll still have more heart attacks that kill people this year than coronavirus. You'll still have more people wind up on dialysis because of diabetes this year. Well, let me not say that. There'll be a whole hell of a lot of people that will wind up on dialysis. Let me put it that way. There are going to be a lot of people with a lot of serious medical problems because of diabetes. So these problems were here long before this viral infection became a problem all over the world. people were dying with heart attacks, dying with strokes, getting on dialysis, and winding up with all other types of medical problems because of diabetes not being controlled correctly. And now what is happening is now we have another added stress, another potential devastating reality that could happen to a person with diabetes. And I'm sure we're going to get to some of that later in the show. But the main point that I'm getting to is if you are a diabetic, it's time to put in the work to solve the problem. Don't be like your aunties, your uncles, your aunts, your grandmothers, your mother, your father, getting diagnosed with diabetes in your 30s or 40s, taking medication for the rest of your life, and you still die taking the medications for diabetes. Obviously, that's not the answer.
Yes, sir. And thank you for that response, and thank you for those analogies that help to really make it the understanding of what diabetes is and the impact on the body. So this next question, we're going to go to our regional minister. You know, for the regional, personally, even with myself with this COVID thing that I try to manage how much news that I watch on it, because it's constantly these number of deaths, these numbers of deaths, right? And I can imagine how that can be very overwhelming to people. So from a pastoral standpoint, from your perspective, what guidance can you share to those who are viewing to help us to not become overwhelmed with anxiety and grief, dealing with, you know, the constant news reports of people dying, or even relatives or coworkers that we know are dying? Like what could you tell them?
Okay, so beloved, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan tells us that you and I, Brother Willie, are student ministers. So that means we must take the posture of being a student, and the posture of being a student, he says in Closing the Gap in his discussion with Brother Jabril, is that one of the characteristics, the main characteristic of a student is humility, is being humble. And as we approach our coming into the mosque, sometimes we call it the nation, but it's coming into the mosque, we take up actual facts in a student enrollment, which simply says to us is that being a student, being humble, we approach the knowledge and we approach education differently, because the 21st century challenge, the new educational paradigm, is rooted in at the center of God. So as Brother Achilles started, and I started, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. What that does is, what I've done is I have appealed, or one would appeal, to the one who created us.
That's right.
Therefore, it's like reaching into your glove compartment and getting the owner's manual out when you go to God. Now, the minister teaches us, again, going into Closing the Gap, that when we are going to study, there's a connection between prayer and study, because the questions and the answers that are found in our supreme wisdom, particularly the lessons, are questions asked by the Savior and the answers given by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we have to approach it with prayer first, so that we show proper reverence for the author of those questions and the one who's grown into godhood, who answered the questions. Now, going back to the core of your questions and going back to what Dr. Achilles said to us, the brain and the body have genetic material that go back to he said trillions of years. So that means it goes back to the originator of the heavens and the earth. We are direct descendants of God himself. So why wouldn't we understand the connection between the heavens and the earth, our thinking, and the effect it has on our body? There are 9 systems in our body controlled by our brain, the 10th system, just like there's the sun in the middle of our solar system controlling the 9 planets. So if our thinking is full of anxiety and grief, lack of strength, laziness, cowardice, niggardliness, right? And we're being stressed out because of debt and the oppression of men, then what happens is that this brain produces certain chemicals. If you're happy, you feel light. If you're sad, you feel down, and your body and your tone scale reflects that. So the brain has an impact. So you're watching the news. All these people dying. You full of anxiety. Your bills are due. The restaurant that you worked at is closed down. You don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. All of that stress has an effect on your immune system and makes you as susceptible, if not more susceptible. It adds to your susceptibility to these infectious diseases that invade the body. So prayer is necessary. Meditation is necessary. The ability to look beyond yourself and your own problems and see a greater world and take the focus off of yourself to go and have a change of environment. So I'll give you an example, brother, and I'll close this point. This past week has been a very stressful week for me as a pastor because of a tragedy that's taken place in our community. It not only affected the believers and their family, it affected me as their brother and as their minister and as their pastor. So after all was done and we did our pastoral duties in terms of janazah and services and whatnot and words of comfort and lifting up the family, I had to go somewhere. So there was a change of scenery. My assistant minister thought enough for me to invite me to a kind of a seaside resort just for a few hours. And I was down by the seashore, watching the ocean coming in and out in a change of scenery and listening to the seagulls and taking the focus off of myself and looking at the vastness and beauty of God's universe. And we stayed there till the sun went down. And because we were somewhere where there wasn't city lights blocking out the stars, we were able to see all of the stars. And it took the focus off myself. And I saw the vastness of the universe, and it helped me personally, because who pastors the pastor, who counsels the counselor, who doctors the doctor? It's the ultimate pastor, the ultimate counselor, God himself. So it's very important that we include prayer, meditation in all of our prescriptions that Dr. Keeley, a medical doctor, is going to prescribe tonight.
Yes, sir. So for those who are listening, recapping what the minister said, that taking time for ourselves, that prayer, that change of an environment, that can help us not to become overwhelmed, So thank you for those words. So Brother Dr. Keeley, the next question is to you. In addition to you being a medical physician, you're also a believer and a practitioner of the dietary program known as How to Eat to Live. So can you share with those who are watching what actually is How to Eat to Live, for those who may not know? And can you give some examples of what those books cover and how that information can be beneficial at a time like this? I know I didn't stack like 3 questions into one.
Yes, sir. Well, for anybody that is not aware, How to Eat to Live is a 2-part series. Book 1, book 2, 116 pages, 192 pages. I'm sorry, 119 and 192 pages. I would say that just briefly, for those who haven't heard my story, I practiced medicine after all of my training for 7 years and was frustrated with the medical community that I was involved in and felt like at one time was the greatest thing for people. But after not having the type of experience that I was expecting, I wanted to see people walk out of medical problems, solve their problems, improve, and not have to take medications. But the system isn't just made that way. One day after a frustrating day in the office, I went home. This book looked like it was doing like this to me. And I sat down and started reading it. And in book 1, in the first 30 pages, it talks about solving diabetes without medication. What? What the hell is this man saying this? Chronic diseases can be solved. What? I've never heard a physician in all the years I've been studying and grinding on this mission, did I ever hear anybody say that? And then the statement that was like really just the slap in the face was that fasting is the cure for 90% of our ills. At this point that I'm talking about, I am in debt $250,000. And in 2 books that cost me $5, I got the answers to what I was looking for since the day I said I wanted to be a physician, which my mother said was when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
So it was shocking. It was a blow. After all those years and all that money, Just 30 pages changed everything. And of course, I didn't believe it at first sight. I questioned everything. Man, how the hell could he tell me after all these years in school about what I know?
Mm.
And then I started experimenting with myself and with my patients. And since then, it's been pure heaven using this as my foundation versus the stuff that I was taught. I'd like to just read something real quick if you all don't mind.
Go ahead.
Here's one of those statements that blew me away. And might I add that I was very angry that I had spent all those years and all that money. And then this book made everything make sense. But that's the way Allah works. If I hadn't gone through that, I would not probably have the ability to help as much as I do, because there was some benefit to that education. But there also is a highly economic driven part of that system as well. So here's a statement on page 159 of book 2. He says, if you are a sugar diabetic, stay away from sugar, for sugar will make you a diabetic and you will never know that you have it until you indulge in too much sugar and starchy foods. Eat more protein foods and eat more fish and that which water produces of life other than scavengers of the water. We have scavengers out there in the water and we have them on the land. Stay away from that kind of animal or life that lives on nothing but filth itself. And do not be a slave to your eating desires. Be the master of what you should eat and do not allow the desire or hunger to be the master. So the two very, 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 and I would say probably 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 very important points, but for this conversation, very important points. Being a diabetic is 100% dependent on what you put in your mouth. Let's start there, because those of you who go to physicians and they don't change your eating habits, but just a few statements like stop eating starches and do this, that's not good enough. You have to have the type of information that you need to go to work, get to an investigation, start assessing and evaluating what it is that you're doing every day that causes your sugar to be 235. Why is it 137 one day and 250 the next day? Why is it sometimes you go all the way up to 425 and then sometimes it doesn't move at all? Have you ever stopped and evaluated what's the difference in what you did that day that produced that reality? We got to get back to understanding what's happening with this body. The second thing he talked about was eating more protein foods. Why protein foods? Because most protein foods don't have a lot of sugar. But bad proteins will make sugar slowly rise. I did so much experimentation with my patients, that I am for sure that the meat, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us we shouldn't eat, he says meat is bad for us. And we should have a goal of becoming a vegetarian. That's his words. Meat will eventually make your sugars worse. Meat is a large part of why we have so many diabetics in the Black and brown community. And then the last powerful part of that statement to me is that each one of you have to take back control of your actions. You're sitting down, you're doing something with the family, you're doing work, you're involved in something. Somebody mentions food, a commercial comes up about food, something shows up on your computer or your phone about food, and now you're hungry, you weren't even thinking about food. Take that control back. We live in a society that is promulgated by a Satanistic mind, the mind of something opposite of God. And so if you want to be in a better shape as a diabetic, and understand, we'll probably get to this in a minute, but as a diabetic, you have an increased chance of getting this infection, becoming a victim of this plague. But if you take control and do the things that get your sugar in a better state to stop all this burden on your body, then you will have a much improved chance of making it through this. And if I may, as a last point to this, as Brother Abdul Halim mentioned, I don't have anything to add to his part, but I just wanted to mention this. See, when you're on the news every day and they're talking about how many people were intubated, how many people died, how overburdened this hospital is, how these medical professionals don't know what to do, they're overworked, that overworks your mind. But if you look at the statistics, I never watch the news for COVID. I go to the Worldometer every day, Worldometer, or whatever day. I don't necessarily do it every day, but I look at the total number of cases. And then I look at the currently infected patients. So today it was 6,551,410 people. Out of that 6,551,410, 6,489,532 were mild condition. 99% of the people that are infected right now in the world are mild condition. Those that are in serious condition is 61,878, 1%. See, if you go and you find a source of information for yourself to keep yourself in control, you can't get overwhelmed by saying, hey, even if I get it, I got a 99% chance of doing okay. That's a lot better than what you get on the news.
Sure.
And then if you look at the closed cases, it's 16,296,609. I'm sorry, 16,296,609. Out of that, 15,500,291 have recovered and been just discharged. 7,906,318, or 5% deaths in the world. So your chance of getting the infection and dying from the infection is 5%. And you betting people would take those odds any day. So my only point is find a good source of information, keep up with the current events, but stop allowing our enemy. The daily news is your enemy for sure. They don't tell you anything that is news, and they tell you everything that is propaganda. How can I prove that? Because in the United States in 2020, so far, we have lost 170,000 people approximately to the coronavirus. Do you all realize that we're already at probably 600,000 or 700,000 people that have died from heart attacks?
Man.
Do you know that we've already lost many more than that? I'm talking about 70,000 to cancer. We've lost more than the cases of coronavirus to strokes. So the correct way to present news would be, hey, you watching this program with that hamburger in your mouth? You better put it down. You might have a heart attack. Hey, you out there eating that fried chicken with all that fake salt in it? You better put that down before you have a stroke. Hey, you just finished drinking a diet soda? Oh yeah, and you had some processed food with all those additives, big old long fat ingredient list. You better put that down before you develop cancer. So there would be about 8 or 9 or 10 different things that they would list before they got to coronavirus. That's true news, because your chances of having a heart attack are higher than you dying from dying from COVID. That's just actual fact. And so please, brothers and sisters, gather yourself and get back in control and stop letting somebody else dictate, or else you'll always be highly stressed.
Wow. Thank you for those. And thank you for those comments. And Brother Dr. Abdul Halim, we're going to come to you. You know, most of these people, many of these people who are diabetics and all of these other underlying conditions, they attend houses of worship, be it a mosque, a church, a temple, a synagogue. What are they in barbershops or salons, right? From your perspective, what can churches and mosques and organizations do at this time to help those who are at a greater risk to COVID and due to diabetes and other underlying conditions?
Well, first and foremost, again, as a follower, a student of the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the leadership of Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, what I can do is what Dr. Achille did, is give them these. Or to break it down in such a fashion that I can give it to them, like slowly but surely, but they surely have to get it. They have to get How to Eat to Live. I don't have the book covers to these original hardbacks, but on the book cover, Brother Achille, if he shows his, it says from God in person. That right there should blow your mind. It doesn't say from me, Elijah Muhammad. It says from God in person, How to Eat to Live. So if the best Noah introduces himself in the Quran as being the best Noah, then my job is to tell them what the best Noah told me or told the messenger of Allah that he told me, so I can tell them, to be a witness bearer. So that really is where it begins. And you know something that's true? If you really look around, and I'm going to lamb back on what Dr. Achille said, talking about your source of news. Sometimes we have to step back and look at all of these people who are at all these juice fasts and all this. The key word is fast. But all these people, I'm going on this 15-day juice fast. I'm going on this 15-day watermelon juice fast. The key word is fast, no matter what they're doing. People have taken the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, intermittent fasting, they call it. That's called how to eat to live, meaning the core of how to eat to live is Brother Achilles is saying, taking charge of your life is to eat one meal a day or one meal every other day or one meal every two or 3 days. So it's about fasting. It's a prescription for us. So the point is that if you really look around and you listen closely enough, you'll find out people are practicing aspects of how to eat to live. The so-called vegan and all this stuff that's hitting us, all this eating all this kale, even though how to eat to live tell you against kale, all this soy-based foods and all this kind of stuff like that. They are slowly coming to the understanding that what they're putting in their mouth is killing them, and they're trying all kind of different things instead of the formula that will save and preserve their lives, which is how to eat to live. So our job, brother, is to find a way to introduce it. And what I try to say, particularly to Muslims, is that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan published a book called Torchlight for America.
Right.
He took the language and the teaching of Honorable Elijah Muhammad and he put it in a public policy language, a universal language, so that people could understand. We must not be intellectual and spiritual cowards, where we don't delve into the depths of the teachings, and all we do is recite it. Memorization and recitation has its place, particularly as it relates to our supreme wisdom. But when are we going to get into the enucleization of it, meaning breaking it up, where it says in the problem book that Muhammad cracked an atom in 10 million parts? When are we going to get into breaking that wisdom up or drilling down into that wisdom and exploding the wisdom in it? And when are we going to get into application of that wisdom? So we've got to learn how to take the teachings, the Muslim program on the back of the Final Call and in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, and translate it into applicable or implementable processes. We have to take how to eat to live and take bits and pieces of it, which Dr. Keeley has been quite successful in doing. He takes parts of it and he introduces it to the people. He lets them know it's how to eat to live, but in one sense, he teaches them certain things. You got to change your diet. He'll start with change your diet. This is what I want you to do so I can get you off this medication. He don't just tell them, stop taking that medication right away. He says, do this so you can stop taking this medication, so you can stop suffering these things. So how do we translate the teachings and put it in language that a Christian would understand? Put it in a language that a Hebrew would understand. Put it in a language that our brothers and sisters, the Pan-Africanist nationalists, would understand in such a way that we communicate with them, even if they don't accept it from being God in person, that it makes so much sense that you'd be a fool to ignore it. So that's what I say, brother. So that's what I talk about the LOC. And the minister said to us on 10/11/15, we were in his suite. And he said to many of his ministers that were sitting before him, and I'll share it with the audience. He said, some of you will not be fit for the next phase of this work. He said, not that you're not good people. It's just that you're going to have to deal with people going forward that don't believe what we believe, but they're good people and they believe in freedom, justice, and equality. Can you operate or meet with people or work with people who don't believe what we believe, yet accomplish a common goal? And the question you ask is just that. Can I go into the church and without even mentioning anything from the Holy Quran, go into the Bible and teach them how to eat to live? Do you know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us Islam out of the Bible? He said, at a certain point in time, he said, I wish my ministers would start teaching the damnable Bible. He said the Quran is the root of Muhammad. However, he knew that our people spoke a language that was taught to them out of the Christian Bible, the King James Version. So you'll find in Message of the Black Men and there's other teachings, many quotes and truths from the Bible, speak to our people, and Minister Farrakhan has become a master of that, going into church and preaching Jesus like them people had never heard Jesus before. We have to learn how to do that, how to take the teachings out of the mosque and then go to the people and speak and communicate it in a language that they will understand. Nobody can be successful that does not speak the language well.
Wow, and thank you. Very good insight and very good guidance shared for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and your words as well. Brother Dr. Akil, I want to come back as a follow-up question to what you were sharing about how to eat to live. Two parts. Can you share more guidance from how to eat to live for those who are diabetics who might be watching, or even those who are on a brother told me he was told like he was pre-diabetic, right? So can you share more guidance from how to eat to live about that, and the guidance that how to eat to live offers for just overall good health?
Yes, sir. So the first thing that I would say to anybody that's been told by a doctor that you pre-diabetic would be like getting in your car, you on the way across the country on a trip, and they say your car is pre gonna break down. Your car is in bad shape and it's not gonna make it. That's all pre-diabetic means. It means that you are not taking care of your body in congruence with the way that the body works in the right way, and your numbers and sometimes your skin, because sometimes it could be what we call acanthosis nigricans. You see some people that may even be my color, but you look at their neck and it's a bunch darker, or sides of their face. I'm sure a lot of us have aunts and uncles where the sides of their face were really dark and the rest of their skin wasn't as dark. Back of their neck or their shoulders were darker than the rest of their face. That is a process of eliminating toxins that thicken the skin and darken the skin because of so many toxins are trying to come out of the body. But at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, there are so many signs when the body is going in the wrong direction. Because as a physician, I was taught, as well as I saw in the reality of my practice, that when I diagnosed a person with diabetes or high blood pressure, heart problem, cholesterol issues, all that, that problem didn't start last year, a few months ago. That problem was going on with you sometimes 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years before you get to a place where you literally have a diagnosis of high blood pressure diabetes. So this is a chronic problem of, again, overindulgence and a problem with your body being able to function under the wrong type of food, or well, I should put that in quotations, because if you are a diabetic, you are the result of a lack of good food. A body that is getting the right food, even if you gain a lot of weight, won't go into diabetes if it's quality food. The first aspect of diabetes is the lack of quality food, and then the extra weight and the overburdening of the body, as I mentioned earlier. And so, I want to challenge each person that's listening, whether this is your first time hearing about How to Eat to Live or it's your 1,000th time, get the book and read the book. There are, I think, 7 or 8 statements. I'm just going to get actual facts real quick, if you all don't mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 statements that he makes about diabetes in book 1. And in book 2, he makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 16 statements that he makes in both books about diabetes. And I will say this again, just as a repeat of what I said earlier. If you are a diabetic and you've been diabetic for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 or more years, are you getting better with the medicine that you're taking? Or have you started on a medication and then they added a medication because your sugars didn't do better, and now you're taking a shot, or now you may be taking two shots. You could take the one shot that's long acting and then you take a shot when your sugar goes up. That's like a dog running after its tail. That makes absolutely no sense for you to eat whatever you want to eat, and then you start running after sugars. Oh, it's 250. Let me take 5 units. Oh, it's 175. Let me take 2 units. Oh, it's 350. Let me take 20 units. Oh, damn, I took too much. Now I'm going short. I'm shaking. I got to take something to bring my sugar back up. That is absolute insanity. And you are going through that on a regular basis because you haven't stopped and slowed down and come to the conclusion that is crazy. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but I didn't come here to play with anybody tonight. If I never get a chance to talk to you again, I pray that I give you something that makes you stop for a minute and evaluate what you're doing. Look at your family. Your mama had diabetes, your grandmama had diabetes, your aunts and uncles had diabetes, and they all died taking the medication. So it never solved the problem. Isn't it time to look for something new? Isn't it time to try to find a different answer to the problem that you're suffering with? All you see in your future is going blind, winding up in dialysis because your kidneys fail, or winding up starting to get some toes and feet and legs cut off. So now you're forever stuck in a wheelchair or on a walker or limping because you had something amputated. Wow. Come on, brothers and sisters. That's not a future that you want for yourself. And if that is true, if you agree with that statement, I don't want that for myself. I don't want to keep taking these medicines. Then it's time to start looking for some new information. And then it's time to get to the activity of changing your everyday actions that produce the problem.
Good.
And while I'm on that subject, it's the same for any other medical problem. As I said, as the quote that I read, he said, chronic medical problems can be solved. And then he said, diabetes can be controlled without medication. When have you ever heard anything like that? When have you ever heard a statement that if you eat one meal every day of the best of foods, and you fast 2 or 3 days every month, at the end of the year, you will not have enough germ in your body to cause you to be sick more than 1 hour? That's a statement that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad makes multiple times in these 2 books. And then he goes on to say that if you eat one meal every 2 meal every 48 hours, you will not be sick but every 3 to 4 years. If you're only sick every 3 to 4 years, that's not a chronic problem. That's maybe something that you catch or something that happens every once in a year, once in a few years. And then he said, if you eat one meal every 2 days, one meal every 72 hours, you will never be sick. I can promise you all, I've read the books you've read. I've read these so-called gurus out here. Nobody can give that type of statement. Nobody gives that type of statement. But again, that's a very powerful statement. Myself nor brother Dr. Alim are trying to tell you to leave whatever you are a part of and come join us. No, we're just telling you that that's a profound statement. Not in person. If you know another book, if you know another book that can give those type of guarantees, tell me what it is. But all I want to do is allow you to receive this plate from me, is that if you are a diabetic, you are at increased risk of having a difficult time making it through the plague. Isn't it time to try something different?
Thank you. I know somebody, if you're watching it on Facebook as well, you might want to turn your volume down. We're starting to get feedback. If you open up a Facebook account, you're starting to get feedback. So before, there's some people that have submitted questions. Before we go into the question, I'll ask this. This is Dr. You have a background in urban planning, and the media reports are talking about how the infrastructure of the essential their structure, especially the healthcare system. And Brother Akila, you can respond to this as well after Dr. Alim. So, from your perspective as an urban planner, what does these manifestations of these weaknesses mean for the future of America?
Well, Brother Will, if you allow me to share my screen, I'm going to share some screen if it'll allow me to do so.
Go ahead.
And so, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says to us, make your own neighborhoods a safe and decent place to live. But what is a neighborhood? So, in the 1920s, 29, this book
Regional Survey of New York and its Environs, Volume 7, he put together what is called a Neighborhood and Community Planning Unit, a Neighborhood Planning Unit. And what's interesting about a Neighborhood Planning Unit is that it has a 1/4 mile radius, or it is a 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile. I wish I could get a witness. But when you study it, all of the so-called great Western planners, the one Daniel Burnham, who planned the city of Chicago and the Magnificent Mile that we visit when we go up to Savior's Day, it's a very well-planned, master planned city. But in the master plan of the planning unit, if you notice, look in the middle, you see what he points out is a community center. All of these architects and these planners bear witness that this is called a Mesopotamian model, which is a euphemism for Northeast Africa or the Asiatic world where we came from. At the center of the neighborhood, at the center of the community was the temple, the mosque, the church. When we knew that this new man was coming on the planet, we had to have some place. We didn't have no churches and whatnot. We worshiped Allah because we knew who he was or had an idea who we were. And so we didn't have churches and cloisters and synagogues and temples and all. We didn't have all that. But eventually in the time in Mesopotamia, again, talking about where we come from, that so-called Middle East, in the center of that so-called neighborhood is, in this case, they say a community center, but it's really an elementary school. And it's a 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile, surrounded by major thoroughfares, and you have these interior collector streets. Now, what I'm pointing out to you in terms of giving you an idea of what a neighborhood is and what's in it and what's on its exterior and what's on its interior is just for this purpose. The reason why I'm talking about that is because when he tells us to make our own neighborhoods safe and decent places to live, I'm gonna go back to what Brother Achilles is saying. We were taught that the one of the best exercises is a simple 30-minute brisk walk.
That's right.
But how you gonna walk out of your street 30 minutes either way, this 1/2 mile plus 1/2 mile, or this 1/4 radius from where you live to that center area that I showed you, which is a school, and in the school there's a playground and all of that. How are you going to do that if there's crime in your community? So you're afraid, you're living behind burglar bars, you're living behind alarm systems, you're living behind your gun and your knife and your stick and all that because you're afraid to go out of your own house. That contributes to our lack of well-being, a lack of exercise, basic fundamental, the ability to walk. And if your neighborhood has raggedy sidewalks and you can't even walk, or it's dangerous to walk in the streets because people are flying up and down your street at 50 miles an hour, you can't ride your bike safely without getting run over. So the point I'm trying to point out, brother, we talk about a failure of our healthcare system. We don't have a wellness system. There's a bridge and buildings and things that are named after a famous white doctor in the medical center. He was the head of all of the medical centers. His name was Dr. Richard Wernerdy. And he said when we were planning a commuter rail system from what is called a Fort Bend or Sugar Land or Missouri City area to the medical center, because when you did a survey, most of the people that worked in the medical center lived out in Fort Bend County, which is a suburb of Harris County. And we have the largest medical center in the world in Houston. He said these words at this meeting. He said, we don't have a wellness system. We have a sickness system.
Wow.
It floored me because he's admitting that the expansion of the medical center is based upon operating on people and drugs. It's not about preventive medicine. It's not about what Dr. Achilles is trying to get across to us, that the simple solution is that we're digging a grave with our knives and our fork, with our teeth.
That's right.
But also what's contributing to it is being sedentary, being locked in the house now due to COVID-19. Some of us are going stir crazy. We're getting cabin fever. And we're not going on walks. We're not going out shooting no ball. We're not doing anything. So what I want to say is, beloved, that the real solution is separation, mentally, spiritually, and physically.
That's right.
And to build our own community, whether it's on this model, which again is our model, at the center of it would be, say, Mosque Mariam, with a school attached to it. And then a row of businesses that we go to where we do our shopping, and we have our houses, whether they're multifamily, single family, around, but the call of prayer is made and we could walk to the mosque within 5 minutes for the second call of prayer. Does that make sense?
That's
When
right.
I went to Turkey, they had the same model, but just about in every corner, like you got a convenience store in every corner of America, they had a masala where you could pray. And when the call of prayer was made, in a grocery store, in a department store, there was a place to wash up and a prayer room. Everywhere, Turkey, that I went. So my point is, brothers and sisters, is that we have to adopt. Islam is not a religion. Islam is a lifestyle.
That's right.
We have to adopt a lifestyle that is congruent with our own survival and sustainability. And so the healthcare system that we have here is a so-called medical system. It's not a real medical system. It's a so-called medical system. The real medical system comes from the author of our life, which is God himself, and is found in How to Eat to Live. That is the basis of it. And then we build on that with other physical things like exercise and our living environment, our external environment, and how that impacts these organs and this living organism called our life.
Wow. Thank you. And so thank you for that, brother Dr. Abdul Halim. So brother Akili, a question that somebody asked was, that most of our communities are in, they call them food deserts. So we're talking about how to eat to live. How should somebody navigate that? Right? But they have access. They don't feel like they have access to foods.
Well, I mean, anybody that comes to that conclusion would be accurate in their assessment. We don't have quality access. But I wanted to just read a definition real quick. The definition of apartheid. One definition says, in South Africa, policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. Well, hell, that's certainly in America too, not just South Africa. Segregation on grounds of other than race. And then there's another definition down there that says separateness, the state of being apart, literally aparthood. So right now, those who follow me on my show, we're reading a book and we're discussing a book called Medical Apartheid. I suggest everybody should get it because this book gives the proof, the documented historical proof of what Dr. Alim just finished saying. There is no equality, justice, or freedom in this country. If we want that, we're going to have to seek it and go out and get it ourselves. I have been saying since early 2000s that Black people need to gather themselves together in groups and go shop in white neighborhoods. Because I've known for at least probably 30 plus years at this point that there was no quality food in Black neighborhoods. And so there's not just a food desert in our parts of the community where it's not a grocery store. If you go to the grocery stores in the Black community, it's a food desert because everything in there is garbage. I have personally talked to the truck drivers at Grocer Supply in Houston. And I'm sure that any of you that live in other states or other parts of the world could go and talk to those drivers, and they'll tell you just like those Grocer Supply drivers told me. Their trucks are broken down in zip codes, and the best of foods are put on their trucks last, so that they deliver to the rich neighborhoods, the rich white neighborhoods first, and the garbage and the scraps and the stuff that everybody else picked over is left at the front of the truck. And that's the last stop, and that goes to the Black neighborhoods. I'm not talking theory. I'm not talking what I believe. I'm telling you what I've seen, proven, and have the testimony of the truck drivers themselves as additional proof. I used to do grocery store tours all the time in the 2000s in Houston. I used to go rent a bus myself and take bus loads of people to the Black neighborhood. We would walk through the grocery store so I could help them understand the science of what a grocery store is. A grocery store is not made for your benefit. A grocery store is made to make money. The business principle of our enemies is to make money. It's not to feed you. It's not to make you healthy. It's not to make you wealthy. It's not to make you educated. It's to make money. And if you go out and you evaluate the things that you're hearing on this show tonight and try to make your own evaluation assessment, come to your own conclusion, you can do that. That's my conclusion. And so today, I still work on a regular basis in some of the worst neighborhoods in Houston. And I see mothers that the last time I saw them, they were talking about they couldn't afford to feed their children, but yet one of their babies has Jordans on. I see people telling me, I don't even know what I'm gonna eat today, but you got a brand new Gucci belt on. So you wanna walk around and look Gucci, but food is just whatever's gonna fill up my stomach. So ultimately, as I said before, I love my people. And so when I say things that are critical of us, it's not to put us down, it's because we have to change. We have to prioritize what makes most sense. I'd rather see Black people all over the neighborhoods around this country walking around in shoes that cost $2 and they got holes in the bottom, but they got navy beans and some cauliflower and some good milk and some good fruit on their table to eat rather than looking a certain way. So as a community, we're gonna have to start prioritizing putting our money towards what's gonna keep you alive. And what you dress like, what you drive, where you live is not what's gonna keep you alive. It's going to be the right type of food. And so I know the words that I'm saying takes organization, takes work, takes effort, and things that we have to put together. But the first thing it has to start with is a thought, because the Black people that live in the suburbs, you just in bad shape. Go to any Black suburb around this country, diabetes, high blood pressure, on dialysis, having heart attacks, getting cancer. So money is not the issue. Some of you that make more money still just as sick as the people in the hood. It's a priority issue. You don't prioritize learning about your health. You don't prioritize putting food first before these other things. And so we're winding up in problems.
Wow.
How to live. This book was introduced to us as Black people in the 1930s. Why would somebody, again, a profound statement from God in purpose, God in person, why would the statement that this man who never wasted a word, why would he say how to eat to live? And if that is the truth, that he came to teach us how to eat to live, how to live more abundantly, then what were we doing prior to that? And if we haven't listened to this information and haven't incorporated this information into our daily life, then what are we doing in 2020? What are you eating to do? Good question for us to try to come to a conclusion.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to first, Brother Dr. Alim, is there anything you want to add to what Brother Dr. Achilles said? And then we're going to come back, and Dr. Achilles has 2 questions that somebody submitted to him, and then we'll close out with Brother Abdul Halim with some closing words. So you have anything you want to add to what Dr. Achilles said about the difference in the zip codes and the stores and stuff like that?
There is, in back of me, I'm not showing off, but in back of me, a whole section, of course, because my doctorate is in urban planning and environmental policy. But I've got a whole sections in back of me about food. There's a book by a man named Rothstein called The Color of Law, how America segregated itself. They use the law. They use zoning. They use insurance. They use redlining. They use finance to segregate us to where we are. And when we finally broke through and were able to move out to the suburbs, he's telling you again, Brother Dr. Kelly is telling you, he's right on it. Move out to the suburbs, they move further out. So I give an example here in the Houston area. Many people moved out to what is called Missouri City. But there's two Missouri cities now. There's one that's on FM 2234, which are called Independence. And then there's the Missouri City out on Highway 6. Out by 2234, they got one grocery store, Foodorama. And that's just what it is, a Foodorama. But when you go out on Highway 6, you got Kroger's, you got Whole Food, that's more in Sugarland, but still, there's a whole different reality in their neighborhood. And what Brother Kelly said is absolutely true. I did the same thing, brother. Take people and I said, get in the car with me. And I take them over to Whole Food. I said, now what do you see? And it's a whole different reality.
That's right.
These people eat different, live different, and their lives are longer. But because of their mistreatment of God's people, their life expectancy has been ill-affected now, regardless of all of that. So let's get back to basics. And if I had something to say about what Dr. Kelly said, it's just like this. The man put forth a motion. The motion is he moves that our people adopt how they need to live. And a good motion can never be carried if it's not seconded. So I second that motion. Now all we need to do is call for the question and the vote. Will we adopt how they need to live? That's the motion on the floor. Thank you.
So Dr. Kelly, I know I sent you 2 questions. There was just a 3rd question that came in. So in closing, can you answer those 3 questions and also tell people how they can get in contact with you? Because now during this COVID, it has brought up another aspect of telemedical visits, and I know you provide them. So do you have the questions or you want me to ask them and you answer them? What you got?
Yeah, I have them here, bro. I think I answered the first one. That was about the grocery stores.
But the first one they wanted to know, this one they wanted to know, is sugar from fruit considered bad?
Absolutely not. In this book, How to Eat to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that you can eat as much fruit as you like. All fruit is good for you. The only caveat that I would add to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in 2020, do not eat fruit without seeds. That is not natural food.
Wow.
Okay,
And the second question
yes. Go ahead.
said, how come doctors don't tell people about the side effects of diabetic medications such as Forxiga, whatever, I can't pronounce it, Forxiga.
Well, my answer to that would be, brothers and sisters, I'm not your average person. I'm not your average doctor. When I was practicing medicine in that industry, I was never giving into the type of things that was part of their system. There would be drug reps that would come to my office sometimes and they would hand me medication, say, hey, this medication is the best medication on the market for such and such. One in particular was Prevacin. Y'all remember the little medicine that used to be on television in a pink box? They used to have a little picture of the stomach on there. They said that that medicine was the best medication that any race or any ethnicity or any male, female should take. I looked at the packet while the drug rep was there, opened it up. I looked at the stuff and I said, this medication was tested on 80, I think it was like high 70, almost 80% white men, 3 or 4% black people, like 5 or 6% Hispanics, about 2 or 3% Asians, and then it said others. And so I told him, man, I said, the only logical thing that should come out of your mouth is that this medication is good for white men. It's not even, it doesn't even say this is good for white women because you didn't study it in white women. But how many doctors do you all think question drug reps like that? See, when you go to medical school, the first 2 years, you sit and read from night after night after night. It was drudgery. I promise you all, I probably averaged 2 to 3 hours of sleep a day for 2.5, 3 years. But then as soon as I went in the hospital, it was about what doctor you had a personality that fit with. What doctor attracted you the most? What doctor did you think was the best? And you started following in their way instead of thinking yourself through problems. And so in 2020, doctors are insecure. There's so much information because technology is moving so fast that doctors are coming out of school and they follow protocols. The protocol is Black person, diabetes, this is a medicine. Black people, high blood pressure, give them a diuretic. Protocol after protocol after protocol. Doctors don't read. Doctors are stressed the hell out. Doctors have about 7 minutes per patient. And so all they're going to do is listen to a salesperson, which is a drug rep. Salesperson don't have any, and let me say not any, but not much medical background, mostly sales background. So they're coming in there presenting this medicine to you. And if you listen to the commercials on television, you know they ain't no damn good for you. But the drug rep is going to talk your doctor into giving you this pill. And a lot of times, this medicine like this one here, this diabetic medicine, the reason why so many doctors are using it is because a side effect, you hear me? A side effect of the medication is to cause you to lose weight. Now, supposedly you want diabetics to lose weight, and I would agree, but I don't want you to lose weight from the medication. The medication is killing people. Medicine is causing all kind of diabetic ketoacidosis. So the reality is that what each and every one of you that is a diabetic need to do is start asking questions. If a physician hands you a prescription, why am I taking this? How long am I going to take it? How long am I going to take this? What is this supposed to do to help me? How long am I supposed to be taking this before I can get off of this and get better? You start asking those type of questions, most of these doctors will kick you to the curb, and maybe that'll be your blessing.
Wow. So someone asked this question, brother Dr. Keeley, before we close out. They said that they were surprised when they read in How to Eat to Live books that the Most High Elijah Muhammad said no beans for diabetics. That's according to their reading. They said, is the panel familiar with that? I really like the navy bean soup. So just salad and vegetables for diabetics and eating the same foods every day. So is he saying that if they're diabetic, they can't eat navy beans?
No, that's nowhere in How to Eat to Live. I promise you all, I read this book. Book 1, I'm on my 17th time. Book 2, I'm on probably my 12th or 13th time. It does not say anywhere in How to Eat to Live that a diabetic shouldn't eat beans. I just finished mentioning the section where he talked about eating more protein. Every diabetic that I have eats navy beans. Every diabetic that I have, I suggest to eat navy beans with every meal. Every diabetic that I work with, I suggest you start decreasing your meat, even fish, and increase your beans. And when I say beans, I'm talking navy beans. So I don't agree that that is what the book is saying. There's nowhere in the book where he said, do not eat navy beans as a diabetic. Nowhere in the book. I can promise you that. In my estimation, when he says eat more protein, scientifically, he said fish, but he's also talking about navy beans. So that would be my answer to that question. And if I may, as a close, there were just a few points that I wanted to make to everybody that's listening that is a diabetic, taking notes for your diabetic family member, friend, or whoever. The first one is my suggestion. For those that don't know, 25 years. In January, it's been 25 years of me practicing medicine. The first 7 years, I was gung-ho 100% with what I was taught in medical school. For the last, since then, it's been How to Eat to Live as the foundation of what I do. So my suggestion to all of you diabetics is, number one, purchase How to Eat to Live, book 1 and book 2, and read those 16 statements about diabetes. And then close the book and go somewhere, turn off the television, turn off your phone, tell people to leave you alone, and just let God work in your system for a little bit. Second thing is, do a 2-week food diary and be honest of what your typical eating regimen looks like. Sit down and do that meal documentation. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about what it would look like if we could pile up all the food that we ate in 1 year. He talked about how high you would have to see. And then he said, could you imagine after 50, 60, 70, or 80 years on this planet, how much food that would be? If you had to look at all that food, doesn't it make sense that you wouldn't want to wear your body out? If you looked at it all there at once, that's what you would say was, how the hell did I eat all that food in 50 years? So do that food diary and see how therapeutic that is. Number 3, third suggestion, using the instructions on How to Eat to Live to begin making weekly adjustments. So once you finish your 2-week food diary and you sit down and you look at that food and you say, damn, I did a whole lot more of this. Oh, wow, I don't do as much food as I thought I did. Honest assessment. And then those same 16 statements, take some advice from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and make just one change a week. So if you don't eat any fruit, say next week, I've evaluated myself for 2 weeks, and Sunday I end, Monday I'm gonna start eating more fruit. So if you eat more fruit, you'll have to cut down on something else, right? Do that evaluation, then check your sugars periodically like you have been doing. This is suggestion number 4. Once you make the changes, check your sugars again to see what the changes did to your sugars. And now you have an absolute, actual fact reality of what certain foods do to you and what changes do to you. 5th statement, suggestion. Continue making adjustments until your sugars are improved, or until your medications need to be decreased, or until you don't need any medications at all. That's my suggestion to each and every one of you. And if you are a diabetic, I would suggest you listen to me, because your doctors don't have any answers to help you. That's why your medications keep going up and your sugars keep going up with the medications most of the time. Last one, if you need help, reach out. Dr. Keeley, you can reach me at 832-429-4576. Again, that's 832-429-4576. I am the Ultimate Wellness Group on Instagram. I'm the Ultimate Wellness Group on YouTube, and I'm the Ultimate Wellness Group on Facebook. Come and get as much information as you need to help build you into being more self-sufficient with your eating habits, and get the type of information that can help empower you to get yourself free from this medical industry that's all about money and sickness, sick care, and draining your pockets. So let's make some progress, and I'm here to assist you all if you are not able to do it yourself. Thank you again, Brother Willie. Thank you, Brother Dr. Halim. I really appreciate the ability to
very good, Doc. Very good. I typed in the Facebook chat, I typed in those 6 points. I didn't get a chance to get your number, but what I'll do is I'll double back with you, and I'll share on my page, and I'll share on my page those groups that you are actually in. So thank you, brother, for the advice that you gave, and you put it in a way, as the Mosaic Elijah Muhammad said, was a fool can understand it. It was very simple, and the advice that you gave is simple. How to Eat to Live, and the 16 statements of guidance that the Mosaic Elijah Muhammad talks about in How to Eat to Live. And this last, somebody said, yeah, we're going to upload this on YouTube as well. So, Brother Dr. Halim, we started off when you talked about the ministry of health and how you're using it. So, in your closing word, if you can include your response to this, of course, you got your own closing words. For those who are watching this, they may not be in the Nation of Islam, they may be in the Nation of Islam. What guidance could you give them if they want to begin to establish, get up and running the ministry of health in their particular city?
Our teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right now in the Gulf of Mexico, coming out of the Atlantic, there's tropical storms that are forming. The difference between a tropical storm, our teacher teaches us, Brother Willie, and a Cat 5 hurricane is its level of what? Organization. So we got to get organized, as Kwame Ture would say. If you're not part of an organization, join one. If you don't find one that fits what you need, start one. But of all means, be organized. Now, find people with like minds that want to do what's right. But for God's sake, don't be so arrogant that you won't take a Dr. Keeley or others up under your wing. You may be a brilliant organizer, but he's a brilliant medical practitioner. And if I'm trying to do health and wellness, it would be wise for me, no matter how great an organizer I am, to listen to what he has to say and put him in a position, like in baseball, to put him on third base and try to bring him in with the bat, or post him, make sure that he's posted down in the post and feed him the ball, or out on the wing so he could shoot that three-pointer. Put him in a position to win and to score. And start with an idea that the solution to our problem is in our unity. It's called operational unity, unity without uniformity. The ability to work with others who don't necessarily fit, wear your colors, wear your uniform, operate like you do, but yet you have a common goal, common objectives, and you work on a common plan to achieve those objectives. And get your ego out the way. No big I's, no little U's. We say that, but stuff becomes a cliche after a while. We got to stop that. The woman must be honored, respected, protected, but it becomes a cliche. Rise, something happened bad, rise above emotion into the thinking of God. Yeah, and what does that mean when you lose a loved one or you have a major financial loss or your business closed down? What does that really mean? How do you implement that for real? How do you take that from being a cliche and make it into something tangible? How do you turn your individual idea that forms a vision and make it into an institution? You've got to organize and put together component parts. So how do you do it? Look and see in your community who's already doing what you have in mind to do. Your idea is not nothing new. That thought is already in the atmosphere. If you pray to God, you clean up your system, he'll send that idea down to you. Somebody thought the thought, somebody thought the thought that you just asked, Brother Willie, but we've been so mentally and spiritually emasculated that we're afraid to try to implement it. There's an experiment they did with fleas. They put fleas in a shoebox and put a microphone over the shoebox, and the fleas can jump 1,000 times their own height. And they kept hitting the top of the box, and then after a while, they stopped hearing the fleas hitting the top of the shoebox. They took the top of the box off, and the fleas didn't jump out even though they could, because they've been conditioned by pain. We've been conditioned by pain to stay in the box. And right now, with this COVID-19, this high unemployment, social unrest, and natural calamities, divinely driven calamities, guess what? We're in uncharted territory. So, brothers and sisters, to the extent that we're organized, you know something? Brother Willie, I kind of close with this. This may be foreign to some who are listening, but this will make you come to the mosque and get some of this supreme wisdom. In our student enrollment, actually as an urban planner, I love our student enrollment because it has demographics in it. So here we go. What is the population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth? The answer is 17 million. With the 2 million Indians makes it 19 million. All over the planet Earth is 4,400,000,000. That was at that time in the 1930s. And then he asked, what is the population of the colored people in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth? 103 million. And all over the planet Earth is 400 million. What he did and demonstrate to us was the original nation outnumbers the colored people 11-1. So the old African proverb says, they draw circles. Brother Kelly talked about apartheid. They drew a circle to keep us to keep us out. And what we can do is draw a bigger circle to keep them in. If we expand our thinking and know that we're a global people, we're citizens of the world, that the planet Earth, the whole planet Earth, is ours. When you start thinking like that, that is freedom, that is justice, that is equality. Our enemy can't give it to us. It's not in his nature to give it to us. We want freedom, full and complete freedom. We want justice, equal justice under the law. We want equality, equality of opportunity. Okay, good. You think he's going to give it to you after 465 years? Have we gotten it yet? No, it's something we have to give to ourselves. So in essence, what I'm saying is that in this short period of time, as students of the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we've literally given you something, some food, some information you can use and begin to implement. Find people who are doing what it is that you want to do, unite with them, and if that's not sufficient, then go out and start something for yourself by all means, get organized.
Thank you. And the person came back and they gave a page number of where the Most High Elijah Muhammad was saying about the beans. So that's such a, we want to deal with that. So Brother Akila, you looked at it. What is the guide? They were saying that on page 54 on How to Eat to Live, it talks about no beans for diabetics. I think
On
that's book
54 it
one.
says that?
That's what they posted. They said I apologize, page 49 and page 50 in the bottom of How to Eat to Live.
Right. So I just took a look at that. I see the statement about diabetes is on page 49. And then at the bottom of 49, going into 50, it says some doctors will tell you that you have low sugar, but just tell them that you will have high life in you. Do not eat potatoes, beans, and bread. Eat vegetables. You may eat chicken if it is raised away from filth. Yeah, I mean, I could see how somebody could come to the conclusion that that means don't eat navy beans. But, you know, I mean, all throughout this book, he talks about how good navy beans are for you. When I read that statement, I'm thinking he's talking about the other type of beans, which such as lima beans, black eyed peas, pinto beans, black beans, red beans. All those beans have a higher amount of starch than navy beans. And that's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us not to eat those other beans, because of their starch content, as well as other things like anti-nutrients and the fact that they cause a lot of gas and are very difficult to digest. But the navy bean has a perfect balance of nutrients, very similar to the human body. And I'm not going to sit here and argue that I know what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying better than you. If that's your evaluation of what he said, I don't have anything to say in contrary to that. I look at that statement, as I just said, and as I said previously, every person that I've ever worked with, some that have made a lot of progress. Quick story. I had a very good friend of mine, was in a hospital, called me. His sugars were in the 400s. The doctors wanted to put him on medication. He called me and he asked me, and first thing I asked him was, bro, who do you believe in? He said, what do you mean? I said, that's an easy question. Who do you believe in? He said, Master Prophet Muhammad, Don Minister Farrakhan. I said, well, have you read How to Eat to Live? He said, no. I said, I suggest you go into How to Eat to Live, look at the statements that Don Muhammad made, and then let's get to work. Get out the hospital and let's get to work. He has not been on medication. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. And a lot of people that I work with, when they get off of medications, it's because they're using navy beans as the source of their protein, meaning the amino acids that are very good at helping improve the body. And it helps regulate sugars very well. And in addition to that, it is something that doesn't cause all of the fluctuations of sugars like these other foods, like meats and these other starches. And a lot of these other beans, you see high spikes in sugars when people eat those type of foods. So that would be my response. And if that person is dissatisfied or wants to discuss with me more, just reach out to me. Reach out to me by my telephone number or through one of my sites. We'll do the investigation that we have to come to a good place so that you can do the best you can to take care of yourself.
And in closing, what you have, you reiterating this, you have treated patients and are treating patients who have diabetes with the navy bean, and they have experienced a change in their health.
It's like night and day. Every person that I've ever dealt with, after reading this book and applying this book, and I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I apply this book, every person that I deal with has a prescription to eat navy beans. That's a prescription that Brother Keeley suggests to every person that reaches out to me when they have a problem. And diabetics do, like night and day better than what they were doing prior to using navy beans. It is a beautiful food. It is almost a complete food. And that's what I would suggest to that person. Reach out to me, let's have a discussion, and let's try to find a place that you can make some improvements. Because if you're not eating navy beans as a diabetic, that means you're going to some other source for your protein. And more than likely that source for your protein is probably adding to the problem.
Thank you all. So brothers, thank you all for your time, and thank you. And I think this talk is really beneficial. Like I told Brother Dr. Abdul Halim, the response to it on social media was amazing. And I think we're going to see more people that's going to watch it in the replay. And then when we put it on YouTube as well, more people, they're going to find some great insight. inshallah, we'll see how we can build from this. So thank you all. Thank
Brother
you for
Willie, Brother Willie, can I say one
Yeah.
last thing?
Go ahead.
I didn't get a chance to mention, brothers and sisters, the reason why diabetes is so hard on the body is because the typical person that winds up with diabetes is eating poorly quality foods. So the bad food, the high starches, is a depletion of the body's immune system. The other thing that happens is that sugar, when it's running around in your bloodstream in high amounts, it is literally destroying blood vessels and nerves. So it's damaging the body. And so if the body has all of this work that it needs to go and try to repair, and now you have a virus running around you or bacteria running around you, all that extra sugar feeds it. Just the same way sugar feeds the body, sugar feeds infections. But when sugar feeds the body, it's in a regulated system. When things are done the right way, when you get diabetes, now you're outside of regulation. And that's what causes the body to be in such a disarray and so out of function and so out of pocket that these infections can overtake your body real quick. And if anybody, again, is interested in more information specifically about diabetes, I did a show just a few weeks ago. It's on my YouTube. It's on my Facebook channel. Please reach out, take a look at it, and then send me questions if you have any questions. I want to make sure that you all have the ammunition to improve yourself and make it through this time that we're going through in this plague. So thank you again, Brother Willie and Dr. Abdul Halim, to be a part of this show.
And Dr. Halim, you want any, how can people get in contact with you, Dr. Halim?
I'm on Instagram as A. Halim Muhammad. I'm the Dots Connector on Twitter, and of course on Facebook, Dots Connector, or you can look under Student Minister Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. I want to thank you, Brother Willie. I want to thank my brother and my colleague and my friend, Dr. Akili. And I pray Allah continues to bless you, brother, with the light of his understanding so that you can continue to elucidate that light and shine that light to our people. And again, Brother Willie, thank you for being a great organizer and facilitator, utilizing this modern technology so that we can communicate one with another. Because if we save one life, we save two lives. That is our value in the eyes of Master Father Muhammad, our Savior, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has worked night and day to do, which is to save our people.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Imam.
And may Allah bless each and every one of you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
And all praises due to Allah. Thank you all. And for those people who are watching on Facebook, leave some comments in the section. What did you gain from this? I saw there's one brother who's already asking, how can he get some Navy beans? So that's good. So what did you gain? Send your comments. What did you gain from this? Even those who are going to watch this later, leave in your comments. What stood out to you? What did you find beneficial? Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Like Islam, sir.